Today, we are going to discuss equanimity, upekkha in Theravada Buddhism. Now, Lord Gautama Buddha has described four positive qualities or virtues that are inherently present in the human mind. And they are called divine abodes or Brahma Viharas. And the four Brahma Viharas are loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha. Now, when one develops and cultivates these four Brahma Viharas, it can lead to positive emotional health, happiness, as well as rewarding social relationships. And when one cultivates these Brahma Viharas, it can also contribute to one's spiritual development. Now, Brahmas are celestial beings who exist in the celestial worlds known as Brahma worlds. And in Buddhist cosmology, the Buddha has described 20 such Brahma worlds. And it is said that these Brahmas possess these four qualities quite in abundance. But here, Brahma means superior divine qualities, and Vihara means dwelling places. So, Brahma Vihara means these four superior divine qualities as one's dwelling places. And they are inherent in the human mind, but they function at different levels depending on how one practices and cultivates those qualities. Now, the four Brahma Viharas are also known as limitless and immeasurable qualities because one can express and extend these four positive qualities to all living beings in the universe without any limit or boundaries. The four Brahma Viharas existed in India even before Lord Gautama Buddha appeared. But people during that time were practicing the four Brahma Viharas during their meditation in order to develop what are called deep mental absorptions or jhanas. And they were also hoping that through the development of these jhanas, they will be reborn in one of those 20 Brahma worlds. The Buddha adopted the same four Brahma Viharas and reinterpreted them so that they can contribute to the Buddhist path of liberation as well. Now, upekkha is a word in the Pali language which means to look over with impartiality or equanimity. Now, another Pali word for equanimity is tatra majjhatata, and that means being in the middle. And it is one of the 19 universal beautiful mental factors that are mentioned in the Buddha's higher teachings, Abhidhamma. Now, equanimity is the state of mind based on wisdom that enables one to stay calm and balanced when one faces ups and downs in one's life. The Buddha has described 8 worldly conditions that every human being is bound to experience during life. And those 8 worldly conditions are gain and loss, honor and dishonor, praise and blame, and happiness and misery. This mental quality of equanimity helps one to face these 8 worldly conditions without developing any craving for any pleasant experiences or rejection to any unpleasant experiences. Now, Lord Gautama Buddha, as the Buddha aspirant, Bodhisattva, developed 10 positive qualities called perfections, paramis, over an incalculable period of time. And upekkha is one of those 10 perfections. The other perfections are generosity, dana, morality, sila, renunciation, nekkhamma, wisdom, panya, effort, virya, patience, khanti, truthfulness, satya, determination, adhithana, loving kindness, metta, and equanimity, upekkha. Buddha has also described 7 factors of enlightenment, sapta bojjhanga, and these are the positive, wholesome qualities that a Buddhist disciple has to cultivate when one cultivates the Buddhist path of liberation in order to attain enlightenment and the state of Nibbana. And the 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, sati, investigation of dhammas, dhamma vichaya, energy or effort, virya, rapture or joy, piti, tranquility, passaddhi, concentration, samadhi, equanimity, upekkha. And as we can see, equanimity is the last of the 7 factors. And development of equanimity is facilitated when one develops the first 6 factors. Now, as a Brahma Vihara, equanimity is when one faces any calamity or suffering in oneself or witnesses any suffering in others around, one is able to maintain composure with a balanced mind and emotional evenness without reacting to that experience. Now, equanimity does not mean that one is insensitive or one shows indifference to a suffering. And at a superficial level, it may look like indifference and an uncaring and detached attitude. But in reality, when one practices genuine equanimity, one is able to maintain a caring and empathetic attitude, but at the same time, accept the reality of things as they happen. Now, out of the four Brahma Viharas, equanimity is the pinnacle. The other three factors, when they are developed and cultivated, they positively contribute to develop equanimity and also to maintain it. So one needs to develop the three Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy in order to help develop equanimity. Now, equanimity is able to keep a check on the other three Brahma Viharas to make sure that they develop and progress properly without being negatively affected by their enemies or other negative mental defilements. When one comes across pain, suffering, or any other calamity in others, and if one is unable to do anything through the practice of compassion, that can create a feeling of frustration, disappointment, helplessness, hopelessness, and guilt. In that situation, it is better for one to practice equanimity so that one is not overwhelmed with those negative mental qualities with further suffering to oneself. Because when one is equanimous in that situation, one can use one's energies to do more productive things to help the same people. Now, equanimity does not mean that one is detached or disconnected with whatever is going around one. But equanimity helps one to remain connected with what's going on, but at the same time, one can remain calm with a balanced mind. Now, equanimity is a meditation object. Now, in the Buddhist literature, 40 meditation objects have been described that are suitable meditation objects for concentration meditation, samatha bhavana. And equanimity is one of those 40 meditation objects. Now, the aim of concentration meditation is to develop tranquility and concentration of the mind. So, when one focuses one's attention on equanimity as a meditation object, concentration of the mind will begin to develop gradually. And as the concentration of the mind develops, 5 mental defilements called mental hindrances are gradually suppressed. And the 5 mental hindrances are sensual desire, kama chanda, ill will, vyapada, sloth and torpor, thina middha, restless and remorse, uddhacha kukkucha, and skeptical doubt, vichikicha. Now, when the mental hindrances are suppressed, 5 positive qualities of the mind called jhana factors develop. And there are 5 jhana factors, which are initial application, vitakka, sustained application, vichara, rapture or joy, piti, mental bliss or happiness, sukha, and one-pointedness with equanimity, ekaggata with upekkha. And as the concentration of the mind deepens, what are called deep mental absorptions or jhanas develop. And the Buddha has described 8 jhanas that one can attain through concentration meditation. There are 4 fine material jhanas, rupa jhanas, and 4 formless jhanas, arupa jhanas. And this quality of equanimity is very well developed when one attains the 4th jhana. Now, the concentrated mind that is developed through the practice of meditating on equanimity can then be used to practice insight meditation or vipassana bhavana. And through vipassana bhavana, one can gain insight or wisdom into the 3 universal characteristics of every conditioned phenomenon that exists in the universe. And that is, everything in this universe is impermanent, anicca, leads to suffering, dukkha, and has no stable entity called a self, anatta. And when one gains insight into these universal characteristics, then one can progress further to gain enlightenment and the state of Nibbana. In a discourse called Maharahulova Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya, that's a collection of the Buddha's middle-length discourses. The Buddha was instructing Venerable Rahula, who was his son during his lay life, to meditate on equanimity in order to get rid of aversion. Buddha said, develop the meditation of equanimity. For when you are developing the meditation of equanimity, aversion will be abandoned. And in another discourse called Agata Vinaya Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, which is the collection of the Buddha's numerical discourses, the Buddha described the practice of equanimity as one of the 5 techniques that one could use in order to get rid of hatred that one has developed towards someone else. The Buddha said, when one gives birth to hatred for an individual, one should develop equanimity for that individual. Thus, the hatred for that individual should be subdued. Now, let us look at meditation on equanimity briefly. Upekkha bhavana. Now, meditation on equanimity one can practice anywhere, and it can also be practiced in any of the 4 postures. That's while sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. But when one initially starts practicing meditation on equanimity, sitting in a quiet place with no distractions is helpful. Now, one can sit either on the floor, or if it is not comfortable, one could sit on a chair, but assume a comfortable posture. And then it would be helpful to close the eyes gently and first take a few deep breaths to make sure that the mind and the body are relaxed. Now, a positive mindset is essential when one starts to meditate on equanimity. So, one needs to practice loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana, for a few minutes, sending unconditional loving kindness both to oneself and to all living beings in the universe. And then one can start by visualizing a neutral person in one's mind. A neutral person is one for whom one has no strong feelings, one way or the other. And when one has created the image of this neutral person in the mind, then one can mentally repeat a few phrases such as, "You are responsible for your actions. Your happiness or unhappiness depends on your own actions, not on my wishes for you. May you be calm and non reactive." And one could also make up any other phrases that one is comfortable with. Initially, it may take quite a lot of time and effort to establish the quality of equanimity through meditation. And when one has established equanimity well with that neutral person, then one can continue with the meditation, visualizing a dear person next. A dear person is either a family member, a relative, a friend, a teacher, or a benefactor. And then a difficult person, someone with whom one may have had some hostile feelings. And then to all living beings in the universe. And finally, to oneself. Now, when one contemplates equanimity towards oneself, one can say, "I am responsible for my actions. My happiness or unhappiness depends on my own actions, not on my wishes for me. May I be calm and non reactive." Now, when one practices meditation on equanimity, one needs to keep an eye on two possible enemies who can appear during meditation. One is a far enemy, and the other is the near enemy. Now, the far enemy to the practice of equanimity is greed, aversion, and anxiety. And these three negative qualities, it is easy enough to recognize. But the near enemy is far more difficult to recognize. And the near enemy is attitude of indifference or apathy. Indifference and apathy will look like equanimity superficially, but it is acting against the development of equanimity. Thank you very much.